Hello everyone, and welcome to Turkish series Stars, where we bring you the whispers behind the spotlight and the echoes that refuse to fade. Settle in, because tonight's story has cast a long shadow over the glittering world of Turkish television, and it all began with a quiet confession that grew into a storm. Actress Yaman Öztürk, usually known for minding her own lane and steering clear of headline-chasing drama, allegedly let slip a private anecdote to trusted friends at a recent industry gathering. What was meant to stay within four walls took flight like a spark in dry grass. Word of mouth did the rest, and now the entire gossip world is holding its breath, fixated on one name intertwined with another, Yaman and Demet Özdemir. According to what Yaman supposedly shared, the couple that once radiated effortless harmony faced their sharpest test at the very brink of forever. The claim is simple, devastating, and impossible to ignore. Just days before a planned wedding, a dazzling ceremony that had been whispered about for months, Yaman is said to have walked away. The reason, insiders insist, wasn't an impulsive cold feet moment but the culmination of a deep and complicated rift with Demet Özdemir. One that had been building quietly, away from curated photos and perfect smiles, under the steady pressure of fame, schedules, and expectations that outgrew their promises. If you've followed their journey, you know how it began, a friendship on set that blossomed in the glow of camera lights and laughter between takes. Their chemistry was a phenomenon that fans couldn't ignore, a tidal wave of admiration that made the line between fiction and reality look so thin it almost dissolved. Those around them remember how naturally they moved together, how they seemed to carry the same rhythm, how their shared ambition didn't clash but complemented like two parts of a well-rehearsed duet. And yes, the whispers swelled, families had been informed, plans were not just dreams but sketches, and a date, however discreet, was being weighed against work calendars and location shoots. But success, as it so often does, began to demand more of them than anyone could predict. Projects multiplied, endorsements followed, flights blurred into hotel rooms and rehearsals, and even the most intimate conversations had to be scheduled around call sheets. From the outside, everything looked serene, photographs in perfect light, appearances that exuded ease, and mutual support that felt old and unshakable. Yet the story that surfaced through Yaman's circle paints a different picture behind the velvet curtain. It suggests that, as the logistics of a union became more real, so did the friction. Questions that could be postponed during the early romance: whose city? Which career takes the lead? How do we move together without losing ourselves? Reported back for duty with alarming urgency. Disagreements began as ordinary differences, two strong personalities with plans and dreams, trying to harmonize timing and priorities. But as wedding preparations moved from daydreams to decisions, those differences hardened at the edges. What dress codes had once meant little now seemed like symbols. Guest lists became minefields. A spare day together became too precious to risk on disagreements, and yet the disagreements kept arriving, uninvited and louder than before. Their friends, the same ones who had cheered for them, noticed the shifts. The longer silences, the brief glances that didn't quite meet, the jokes that didn't quite land. According to what's been alleged, there was one night, close enough to the big day to make the heart ache, when everything that had been unspoken finally found words. It wasn't just about one decision or one slight, it was about the weight of choosing forever while fearing what might break along the way. Yaman is said to have described it like a storm that clears a sky but leaves the earth changed. And after that night, if the circulating rumor holds, made a call that stunned even those closest to him. He pulled away, heavy with the sadness of someone who knows love isn't always enough to build a life inside the whirlwind that fame creates. Didn't do this lightly, he broke his own heart, Yaman reportedly said to her confidants, a line that spread like a match across dry leaves. The claim isn't that he stopped caring, but that he couldn't see a path where their dreams, as intense and valid as they both were, could coexist under the vows they were about to exchange. The aftermath was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on the chest. He is said to have found refuge in routine, gym, script, set, repeat. The polished professionalism returned to his public face, while friends say he kept the rawness away from cameras and found calm in familiar places that didn't ask hard questions. And Demet? Silence. Resolute, controlled, and yet achingly loud. She hasn't addressed the story directly, and perhaps that choice speaks more than 1,000 statements ever could. But a public figure's silence is never empty, it's filled with how fans decide to interpret it. The photos she shares feel measured, the captions short and careful. Some followers read strength in the restraint, admiring the way she carries herself with dignity and grace. Others see fragments of pain between the lines, a refusal to let anyone turn her private life into a spectacle. The debate loops endlessly in comment sections. Is this the quiet of someone who's moved on, or the quiet of someone who refuses to let strangers see her bleed? If the inner circle gossip is to be trusted, Demet chose the high road early on. She is said to have told those closest to her that this chapter would not be pried open for the public, that not every beautiful thing that breaks must be dissected for lessons. She leaned into work the way serious artists do, with that intense focus that tells a different kind of story, one of resilience and self-respect. Her team kept the schedule tidy, interviews sparse, and any mention of what might have been carefully redirected toward what is. Meanwhile, the phrase that set off 1,000 takes, an altercation, has rolled through the entertainment world like thunder. The image of a door almost opened and then quietly closed has a way of gripping people's imagination. Did it happen exactly that way? Only two hearts know. But the fascination isn't about the logistics. It's about the feeling, about how close they came to sealing a promise that the world was ready to celebrate, and how swiftly plans can unravel when the truth inside a relationship finally demands to be heard. What remains constant, even amid the swirl, is the peculiar tenderness with which fans hold both names. There is no villain here, no need for melodramatic accusations or blame that stains. Even the harshest headlines soften when it comes to them, perhaps because so many watched them build something luminous from a single spark on set. When two people step away from the future they were expected to have, maybe the most compassionate thing we can offer is the understanding that self-preservation is not betrayal, and honesty, though painful, can be a gift. Since the whispers took flight, calls for a statement have grown louder. Publicists are on standby. Journalists are sharpening questions. Studios quietly hope the noise won't spill onto new releases. And yet, it seems entirely possible that the silence will hold a little longer. Ken has, reportedly, turned down appearances that might lead to probing detours. Demet has, just as deliberately, kept her interviews circled around character work and craft. The world keeps watching, waiting for the first crack, an offhand remark, a knowing smile, a single sentence that confirms or denies. But the two people at the center of this storm appear determined to keep the most sacred pieces of their lives their own. What we do have are the fragments, the calm professionalism, the careful posts, the way friends politely change the subject. We have the echo of Yagmur Ostrik's words that have spun themselves into a narrative because they feel plausible in a world where love and career collide daily at impossible speeds. We have the memory of a pairing that made dreamers out of thousands, and we have the sober reality that dreams sometimes ask for more than two people can give at the same time. The story is not a disaster, nor is it a fairy tale cut short. It's something more ordinary, which is why it hits so hard, two people standing at the threshold of forever, listening closely to their own hearts, and making a choice. If you ask me, that choice is painful, private, and measured. Might be the bravest chapter of all. It honors what they had without turning it into a cage. It leaves room for respect and future kindness, for nods across a crowded room, for the possibility that time will file down what feels sharp today. Whether they speak tomorrow or months from now, whether they never comment at all, the legacy of this moment may be their insistence on dignity. The spotlight can be merciless, but it can also be refused. And if that is the lesson they leave us with, set your boundaries, guard your heart, and do not barter your peace for applause, then perhaps we should listen. This is Turkish series Stars, and we will keep watching with the same care we ask from you. No shouting, no hunting for villains where there are none, just the honest attention of people who love the story and still respect the storytellers. If a statement arrives, we will bring it to you with the same steady voice. If silence continues, we will meet it with grace. For now, we close the curtain gently and let the room grow quiet again, holding on to what made us care in the first place, not the spectacle, but the souls who stepped into the light and reminded us that even the brightest stars are, in the end, beautifully human. And to those who believe in endings that make way for beginnings, take heart. Careers soar on the far side of heartbreak. Art blooms from truth. The screen will flicker again, the music will swell, and somewhere on a set lit with possibility, two professionals will do what they have always done best, give their audience a reason to feel. That, more than any headline, may be the real happily ever after, one that belongs entirely to them. You've been listening to Turkish series Stars. If you found a piece of yourself in this story, stay with us. Share, subscribe, and keep your ears open. Some doors close softly so that others can open without fear. Until the next whisper finds its way to us, good night from the place where the spotlight meets the truth we can bear.